How much is a husband's loyalty worth? Apparently, for the man I vowed to love until death do us part, the price tag was exactly $17,000 and the destruction of my little sister's future. I am sitting on the floor of my empty living room in Seattle, shaking so hard I can barely type this. Just 24 hours ago, I was the devoted wife nursing my injured husband. Leo, he lay on this very sofa, weeping in agony about his broken leg, manipulating me into believing that unless I forced my parents to hand over my sister's $50,000 college fund, he would be crippled for life. He called my family selfish. He made me feel like a monster for hesitating, and God help me, I almost did it. I almost sacrificed my own flesh and blood to save him, but it was all a lie. The surgery denial was a lie. The medical bills were a lie. While I was drying his tears and fighting with my father to get him the money, Leo was secretly laughing at me in text messages with his mistress, planning to use that cash to pay off his online gambling debts. Have you ever looked at the person you love most in the world and realized you are actually staring at a stranger wearing a mask? How do you mourn a marriage that turns out to be nothing but a 5-year-long con? My heart is shattered into a million pieces. I need to know. Soiting 2 hash is greater than did I go too far? Or was this the only way to survive? My name is Victoria, and I have spent the last 5 years of my life perfecting the art of being invisible. I am 32 years old, a freelance graphic designer with a client list that includes some of the biggest tech startups here in Seattle. To the outside world, I am a success story. I own a charming, renovated craftsman bungalow in a leafy neighborhood where the Homeowners Association sends passive-aggressive letters if your hydrangeas wilt. I have a handsome husband named Leo who works in sales, or at least he did until recently. We are the couple you see at the Sunday farmers market, buying organic kale and artisan sourdough, looking like we have figured it all out. But the rain in Seattle does not wash things clean. It just makes the grime slicker, harder to get a grip on. If you looked closely at the photos on our mantelpiece, you might notice that my smile never quite reaches my eyes. You might notice that Leo's hand is always gripping my shoulder just a little too tightly. Not in affection, but in possession. I did not see it back then, or maybe I did, and I just chose to look away because the alternative was admitting that I had made a terrible mistake. It was a Tuesday afternoon in November when the facade began to crack. The sky was the color of a bruised plum, heavy with the threat of a storm. I was in my home office, trying to meet a deadline for a branding package, when my phone buzzed against the mahogany desk. It was Leo. I picked up immediately. I always picked up immediately. That was one of the unspoken rules of our marriage. Victoria, come get me. His voice was tight, laced with a mixture of pain and accusation. My heart hammered against my ribs. I asked him what happened, my hand already reaching for my car keys. I am at the hospital, he snapped, cutting me off. Some idiot did not salt the sidewalk outside the electronics store. I slipped. I think my leg is broken. Just get here. Hurry up. He hung up before I could say I love you. The drive to the emergency room was a blur of windshield wipers slapping against the glass and my own spiraling anxiety. My inner monologue was a chaotic mess of self-blame. Why was I not with him? If I had gone shopping with him like he asked, maybe I could have caught him. Maybe I could have prevented this. I was already rewriting history to make myself the villain and him the victim. It is a habit I learned early in our relationship, a survival mechanism disguised as devotion. When I arrived, Leo was sitting in a wheelchair in the waiting area, his left leg elevated. His face was pale, his dark hair falling over his forehead in a way that usually made my heart flutter. Today, his eyes were dark slits of irritation. "There you are," he said as I rushed toward him. "Took you long enough." I apologized, breathless, ignoring the fact that I had broken 3 speed limits to get there. I knelt beside the wheelchair, my hands hovering over his knee but afraid to touch. I asked him what the doctor said. Leo let out a dramatic sigh, loud enough for the elderly woman knitting in the corner to look up. "They say it is a bad break. Victoria, a tibial plateau fracture." He emphasized the medical terms as if they were accusations against my own healthy bones. "I am going to need surgery, but right now, they just put this temporary cast on and gave me painkillers that do not work. I need to go home." Now, I nodded, rushing to handle the paperwork. I paid the copay with my credit card because Leo had forgotten his wallet. Again, as I signed the receipt, I watched him from across the room. He was berating a young nurse because the water she brought him was not cold enough. He is in pain. I told myself, pain makes people grumpy. He does not mean it, but a small, cold voice in the back of my mind whispered something different. It whispered, "He enjoys this. He likes having people run for him." I shoved that voice down into the dark basement of my subconscious where I kept all my doubts. Getting Leo into the car was an ordeal that required the assistance of 2 orderlies. He groaned with every movement, his face contorted in agony. I felt tears pricking my eyes, my empathy for him overwhelming my senses. I hated seeing him hurt. I wanted to take the pain away. On the drive home, the rain intensified, drumming a relentless rhythm on the roof of our SUV. Leo reclined the passenger seat, staring out the window. "You know," he said, his voice slurring slightly from the medication, "this is going to cost a fortune." I kept my eyes on the slick road. I told him not to worry about money, that we had insurance. I told him the most important thing was that he was going to be okay. Insurance. He scoffed. "Do you know what the deductible is on this plan? And the copay for the surgery? We are going to bleed dry." "Victoria." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. "We had savings. Or at least, I thought we did. I managed the household bills. But Leo insisted on managing our investment accounts. He claimed he had a better head for the market. "We will figure it out," I said, trying to sound soothing. He turned his head to look at me, his eyes narrowing. "Figure it out? Like your parents figure things out?" "Oh wait, they do not figure anything out. They just write a check." "Must be nice." I flinched. There it was. The mention of my family, my parents, Robert and Eleanor, lived in a gated community in Bellevue. They were comfortable, yes, but they had worked 40 years to get there. Leo resented them with a passion that confused me. He hated their money, yet he felt entitled to it. "Please, Leo," I said softly. "Not now." "Why not now?" He challenged, his voice rising. "Look at me. Victoria, I am crippled. I cannot work. Who is going to pay the mortgage? You? With your little logo designs?" My little logo designs paid for the car we were driving. My little logo designs paid for the groceries and the electricity and the vacations he insisted we take. But I did not say that. I never said that. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. I said, "I will take care of us. Leo, I promise." He did not answer. He just turned back to the window, watching the rain blur the world outside. When we finally got home, the house felt different. It was no longer a sanctuary. It felt like a trap. I helped Leo hobble into the living room, settling him onto the plush beige sofa. I propped his leg up on 3 pillows, adjusting them until he stopped grimacing. I fetched him a glass of ice water, a bottle of ibuprofen, and the remote control. I stood there, hovering, waiting for him to tell me what else he needed. "Sit down," he muttered, waving his hand dismissively. "You are making me nervous, standing there like a statue." I sat on the armchair opposite him. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I looked around the room, at the framed prints on the walls, the soft throw blankets, the scented candle on the coffee table. It was a perfect domestic scene, shattered by the white plaster cast dominating the sofa. "This is going to be a nightmare," Leo said, staring at the ceiling. I leaned forward, trying to be the supportive wife. I told him it would heal. I told him 6 weeks would fly by. He laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "You do not get it, do you? It is not just the leg. It is the principle. I am the man of this house. Victoria. I am supposed to provide. And now look at me. Useless." He was baiting me. I knew he was baiting me. He wanted me to reassure him, to feed his ego. "You are not useless," I said dutifully. "You are injured. It happens to everyone." He looked at me, and for a second, his mask of pain slipped, revealing something calculating underneath. "I bet your sister Lily would find this funny," he said. I blinked, taken aback. Why would Lily find this funny? Lily was 21, a junior at the University of Washington studying art history. She was sweet, artistic, and completely harmless. She would be worried sick. "Leo," I defended her, though my voice lacked conviction. "Please," Leo sneered. "She thinks I am a joke, just like your father does. They are probably popping champagne right now, knowing I am out of commission." "That is not true," I said, my voice trembling slightly. He closed his eyes, ending the conversation. "I am tired. Victoria, stop talking. Go make dinner, and try not to burn it this time." I stood up, my legs feeling heavy. I walked into the kitchen, the sanctuary of stainless steel and quartz countertops. I turned on the faucet to wash my hands, letting the water run hot, burning hot, until my skin turned red. I needed to feel something other than the crushing weight of guilt and confusion. Why did I feel guilty? I had done everything right. I had picked him up. I had comforted him. I had brought him home. As I chopped vegetables for the soup he requested, I stared out the kitchen window into the dark, wet backyard. The reflection in the glass showed a woman who looked tired, a woman who looked smaller than she actually was. I thought about what Leo had said about money. I thought about the investment account. I had not checked it in months because he told me not to worry about it. A sharp spike of fear pierced through my chest. I dried my hands and pulled my phone from my pocket. I opened the banking app. My thumb hovered over the login button. "Victoria," Leo screamed from the living room. "Where is my water? My throat is parched." I flinched, dropping the phone on the counter. The screen went dark. "Coming," I yelled back, my voice cracking. I grabbed the pitcher and hurried back to the living room. Leo was glaring at me, pointing to his empty glass. I could have died of thirst. He muttered as I poured. "I am sorry," I whispered. I sat back down in the armchair, watching him drink. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and looked at me. "You know," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that made my stomach turn. "I was thinking about the surgery. The doctor mentioned a specialist, the best in the state. But he is out of network. I stared at him. How much? I asked. $17,000. Leo said. He said the number casually, as if he were discussing the price of a used car. Not a devastating blow to our finances. 17,000? I repeated, the air leaving my lungs. Leo, we do not have $17,000 in liquid cash just sitting around. He shrugged. We do not, but your family does. My breath hitched. I cannot ask my parents for $17,000. Leo, why not? He demanded, his eyes flashing with sudden anger. They have it. They spend more than that on their country club fees. Do I not matter to them? Do you not matter to them? It is not about that. I stammered. It is exactly about that. He hissed. He leaned forward, wincing in pain to emphasize his point. Listen to me. Victoria, I need this surgery. If I do not get it, I could be limping for the rest of my life. Do you want a cripple for a husband? Is that what you want? No, of course not. I said, tears welling up. Then you will figure it out, he said, settling back into the pillows. You will talk to them, or better yet, we will go see them. Once I am up to it, he closed his eyes again, dismissing me. I sat there in the dim light of the living room, listening to the rain batter against the roof. The house felt cold. The silence was not peaceful. It was heavy, pregnant with a threat I could not yet name. I looked at my husband, the man I had vowed to love in sickness and in health. For the first time, I wondered if he loved me, or if he just loved what I could give him. And then, a terrifying thought crossed my mind, unbidden and sharp. Why was his phone in his pocket when he fell? But he told me he was carrying a heavy box. I looked at the side table where he had placed his smartphone. It was face down. It always was these days. I shook my head, forcing the suspicion away. I was being paranoid. Stress was making me crazy. Leo was the victim here. He was the one in pain. I needed to be a good wife. I needed to be supportive. But as I walked back to the kitchen to finish making soup, I could not shake the feeling that the ground beneath my feet was shifting, that the foundation of my life was cracking, and that the $17,000 was just the beginning of the cost I was about to pay. The seeds of deception had been planted long ago. I realized, but tonight, in the rain and the silence, they had finally begun to sprout. The morning light in Seattle was not really light at all. It was just a slightly less opaque version of the darkness that had swallowed the night. It seeped through the blinds of our living room, casting long, gray stripes across the floor where I had slept. I had spent the night on the rug, wrapped in a throw blanket, terrified that Leo might need something and I would not hear him from the bedroom upstairs. My neck was stiff, and there was a dull throb behind my eyes that coffee was failing to cure. Leo was already awake. He was staring at the ceiling, his hands folded over his chest, the plaster cast on his leg glowing white in the dim room like a monument to my failure as a wife. I asked him how he was feeling, keeping my voice soft, trying not to disturb the fragile atmosphere. He did not look at me. He just let out a long, ragged breath that sounded like air escaping a punctured tire. How do you think I feel? Victoria? I am trapped in my own body. I have to pee, but the thought of moving makes me want to scream. So, I am just lying here, waiting for my bladder to burst. I scrambled up, ignoring the protest of my own stiff joints. I helped him with the crutches, my body acting as a human shield against gravity. Every grunt of pain from him felt like a physical blow to me. When we finally got him back to the couch, he was sweating, and I was trembling. We need to talk about the plan, he said, Once he was settled with a fresh glass of water, I sat on the edge of the coffee table, looking up at him. I assumed he meant a plan for his recovery, for physical therapy, for how we would manage the stairs. The doctor called me back this morning while you were in the shower. Leo said. His voice was steady, eerily calm compared to his earlier irritability. He says the break is complicated. If I just let it heal in this cast, I will have a limp, a permanent limp. My stomach dropped. A limp. Leo prided himself on his physical presence. He was the man who walked into a room and commanded attention. Oh God. Leo, I whispered. There is a surgery, he continued, watching my face closely. A reconstruction. They used titanium plates. It would restore full function. 95% recovery rate. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. That was good news. That was a solution. Then we do the surgery. I said firmly, we do whatever it takes. He nodded slowly, but his eyes remained cold. There is a catch. The surgeon is a specialist. He does not take our insurance. He is out of network, and because it is considered elective, since I can technically walk with a limp, the insurance company is refusing to cover the facility fees. I felt the cold creeping back in. How much? I asked, dreading the answer. $17,000. He said, the number hung in the air between us. $17,000. It was not a fortune to some, perhaps to my parents, but to us, right now, it was a mountain. We have savings, I said, my mind racing to the joint account we had been building for 3 years. We were saving for a down payment on a bigger house, maybe a baby. I knew we had at least $25,000 in there. Leo looked away. He picked at a loose thread on the throw blanket. About that, he murmured. What about that? I asked, my voice rising an octave. I moved some money around. He said, still not looking at me. A few months ago, there was this crypto opportunity. Mark from the office said it was a sure thing. Guaranteed returns. I wanted to surprise you. Victoria, I wanted to double our money so we could get that nursery you were always looking at on Pinterest. The room seemed to spin. I stood up, my legs shaking. You moved the money. All of it? Not all of it, he said defensively. Most of it, and then the market crashed. It is gone. Victoria, it is all gone. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. 3 years of scrimping. 3 years of me taking extra freelance gigs, working late into the night, skipping lunches out, all gone because he wanted to play investor. I walked to the kitchen counter where my laptop sat. I needed to see it. I needed to see the zeros. I logged into our bank account, my fingers fumbling over the keys. Current balance, $342.50. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. $300. That was all we had. I walked back into the living room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him, but he was lying there, broken, looking at me with big, wet eyes that reminded me of a kicked puppy. You are angry, he said softly. I understand. I messed up. I was just trying to provide for us. I wanted to be the hero. And now, Saoyut Singh Haling. 2 hash is greater than now I am just a burden. Maybe I should just accept the limp. Maybe I deserve to be crippled. It is my punishment for trying to give you a better life. My anger deflated, punctured by his masterclass in guilt. He was twisting it. He was making his reckless gambling sound like an act of love. And because I was weak, because I was conditioned to prioritize his feelings over my reality, I let him do it. No, Leo, I said, my voice thick with unshed tears. You do not deserve to be crippled. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we cannot change it now. So what do we do? He asked. I cannot work like this. If I cannot walk properly, I lose my confidence. If I lose my confidence, I cannot sell. If I cannot sell, we lose the house. It is a domino effect. Victoria, the surgery is not just about my leg. It is about our survival. I paced the small living room. I could take a loan, but with my freelance income fluctuating and his credit score, which I suspected was lower than he admitted, it would take weeks we did not have. Then Leo cleared his throat. There is one person who has that kind of money just sitting around, doing nothing, he said. I stopped pacing. I looked at him. My parents? I asked. I told you. Leo, I cannot ask them for. Not your parents, he interrupted. Well, technically not them. I am talking about Lily. I blinked. My little sister? Lily was 21. She was a student. Lily? I repeated, confused. Lily barely makes rent working at that coffee shop. She has the trust fund. Leo said, the education fund your grandmother set up. $50,000. Victoria, it is just sitting there. I felt a surge of protectiveness rise in my chest. That money was sacred. It was for Lily's tuition at the Art Institute. It was her future. That is for her college. Leo, I said, my voice hardening. She needs that for her degree. Her degree? Leo let out a scoff. A sharp, derisive sound that grated on my nerves. She is studying art history. Victoria, what is she going to do with that? Be a curator for a museum of imaginary things? It is a hobby, not a career. She is going to end up pouring coffee for the rest of her life anyway. She does not need $50,000 to learn how to look at paintings. I felt a flash of heat in my cheeks. Lily was talented. She was passionate. It is not our money to take. I said, we are not taking it. He corrected me, his tone shifting to something reasonable. Logical. We are borrowing it, just until I get back on my feet, until the settlement from the slip and fall comes through. I am going to sue that store. You know, we will pay her back with interest. He was talking about suing the store where he slipped because he was texting. He was talking about borrowing money from a girl who drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic. She has 2 years left of school. I argued, she can take a gap year. Leo countered smoothly. Or she can get student loans like everyone else. Why is she so special? Why does she get a free ride while we are drowning? I am your husband? Victoria, I am the one who puts a roof over your head. He shifted on the couch, grimacing in pain, reaching for his leg. God, it hurts. He hissed through gritted teeth. It feels like someone is driving a hot spike into my shin. The visual broke me. The logic was twisted. The entitlement was staggering. But the pain was real, or at least, it looked real. And the fear of losing everything, the house, him, our life, was paralyzing. He looked at me, his eyes locking onto mine. Who is more important to you? Victoria? Your sister, who is young and can bounce back from anything? Or your husband, who is lying here begging you for help? Inner monologue. He is right. Lily is young. She can work. She can wait. Leo is here. Now, if he does not get this surgery, he will resent me forever. He will look at his limp every day and see my refusal. He will hate me. And if he hates me, who am I? I am just the woman who failed him. But another voice, quieter, whispered, "This is wrong. This is stealing her future." I silenced the quiet voice. I suffocated it with the pillow of my devotion. "I cannot just ask her for the money," I said weakly. "She does not control the account yet. Dad is the trustee until she graduates." Leo's eyes lit up, a predatory gleam that vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a look of relief. "Then we ask your dad. We go to dinner. We sit them down. We explain the situation. They are family. Victoria, family helps family. Unless Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling, 2# is greater than unless they do not consider me family." He let the question hang there, a challenge. "They do," I said automatically. "Then prove it," he said. "Set up the dinner. Tonight." I looked at him. He was already reaching for the remote control. The crisis apparently managed in his mind. He had delegated the dirty work to me. I walked into the kitchen, my hand shaking as I reached for my phone. I dialed my mother's number. "Hello, darling." Her voice was bright, chirpy, a stark contrast to the gloom in my kitchen. "How is Leo?" We heard he had a little tumble. A little tumble. If only she knew. "Mom," I said, my voice tight. "We need to come over for dinner tonight. It is important." There was a pause on the other end. My mother, with her social radar finely tuned, sensed the tension. "Is everything all right? Victoria, we just need to talk," I said. "Leo, Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling, 2# is greater than Leo, has some news about his leg, and we need to discuss some options." "Of course," she said. "Come over at 7. I will tell your father to open a good bottle of wine." "Is Lily coming?" I closed my eyes. "Yes," I said. "Tell Lily to be there." I hung up the phone and leaned against the counter. I felt sick. I felt like a thief casing a bank. I was about to walk into my parents' house and ask them to sacrifice my sister's dreams to fix my husband's mistake. Leo called out from the living room. "Babe, can you bring me some more ice? This bag is melting." I opened the freezer. The cold air hit my face, but it did not cool the burning shame in my gut. I grabbed the ice tray. I cracked the cubes into a plastic bag. Crack, crack, crack. It sounded like bones breaking. "I am coming." "Leo," I said. I walked back into the living room. A servant to his needs, an accomplice to his greed. The first crack in the foundation had appeared yesterday. Today, the fissure was widening, and I was stepping right into the abyss. The drive to my parents' house in Bellevue usually took 30 minutes. But with the rain and Leo's constant directions from the passenger seat, it felt like an eternity. He criticized every lane change, every tap on the brakes, every bump in the road that jostled his leg. By the time we pulled up to the security gate of the hidden enclave where my parents lived, my knuckles were white on the steering wheel and my jaw ached from clenching my teeth. The guard waved us through. We wound our way past manicured lawns that defied the gloomy Washington weather, passing houses that looked more like small castles than family homes. My parents lived in a sprawling colonial estate at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was a symbol of everything Leo envied and claimed to despise. "Look at this place," Leo muttered as I parked the car. "It is obscene. 2 people living in a 6-bedroom house while we are scraping pennies together." I did not respond. I got out and walked around to his side, opening the door and unfolding the wheelchair we had rented. Getting him from the car to the front door was a production. He draped his entire weight over me, groaning theatrically with every step, making sure that if anyone was watching from the window, they would see just how much he was suffering. My mother, Eleanor, opened the door before we could ring the bell. She was wearing a cashmere cardigan and pearls, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. She looked at Leo, then at me, her expression a mix of concern and polite restraint. "Oh, you poor dears," she said, ushering us into the warm, golden light of the foyer. "Come in out of the rain." My father, Robert, stood in the hallway. He was a tall man with a stern face and eyes that missed nothing. He had never warmed to Leo. He called it a gut feeling early on. Tonight, his gut seemed to be tightening. "Rough night?" my father asked, looking at Leo's cast. "You have no idea." "Robert," Leo said, dropping the polite mister. "It has been hell, absolute hell." We moved into the dining room. The table was set with the good china, the one with the gold rim that we were only allowed to touch on Christmas. Crystal glasses caught the light of the chandelier. Sitting at the far end was my sister, Lily. She looked up from her phone and gave a small, tentative wave. She looked so young, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, paint smudges still faintly visible on her fingers. "Hey, guys," she said softly. "I heard about the accident. That sucks." Leo grunted as I helped him into the chair at the head of the table, a seat usually reserved for my father. But Leo had claimed it because it had more legroom. My father tightened his lips but said nothing, taking the side seat instead. Dinner was roast beef and roasted vegetables, but the food tasted like sawdust in my mouth. I spent the first 20 minutes staring at my plate, moving a potato around with my fork, waiting for the bomb to drop. Leo ate ravenously, washing down the beef with a large glass of my father's expensive Cabernet. "So," Leo said, wiping his mouth with a linen napkin, "I guess Victoria told you the bad news about the surgery." My mother nodded sympathetically. She mentioned it might be complicated, but insurance will cover it. "Surely." Leo let out a short, bitter laugh. He swirled the wine in his glass, staring at the red liquid. "Insurance? The great American scam." "No, Eleanor, they are covering the basics. Cast, crutches. But if I want to walk like a human being again, if I want to be able to work and support your daughter, I need a reconstruction. And that is $17,000 out of pocket." My father paused, his fork hovering halfway to his mouth. He placed it down slowly. $17,000, he repeated. "That is a significant sum." "It is," Leo agreed. "And right now, thanks to the economy and some saluting hauling, 2# is greater than unforeseen market shifts. We are a little short." I flinched. Unforeseen market shifts. That was a generous way to describe gambling away our life savings on crypto. My inner monologue screamed, Tell them he lost the money. Tell them the truth." But my mouth remained shut. I was the loyal wife. I was the partner. We were a team, even if the team was sinking. "We were hoping," I said, my voice trembling, "that maybe you could help us. Just a loan. We would pay you back." My father looked at me, his eyes softening slightly, then shifted his gaze to Leo, where the softness hardened into granite. "Victoria, you know I would do anything for you," my father said, "but I have a policy about lending money to family. It complicates relationships. And frankly, Leo, I have seen how you manage your finances. You lease a car you cannot afford. You buy gadgets you do not need. I am injured." "Robert," Leo snapped, slamming his hand on the table. The silverware clattered. "This is not about a new iPhone. This is about my leg." My mother gasped. Lily shrank back in her chair. There are other ways, my father said calmly. Payment plans, bank loans. I have tried, Leo lied. His face was flushing red. The banks are tight right now, and I cannot wait weeks for approval. I need the surgery now. Silence descended on the room. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Then, Leo's eyes drifted down the table. They landed on Lily. Lily was picking at her bread roll, trying to make herself invisible. Leo smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf spotting a lamb separated from the flock. There is another option, Leo said smoothly. One that does not involve dipping into your retirement. Robert. We all looked at him. Lily's trust fund, Leo said. Lily froze. She looked up, her eyes wide. What? She whispered. The education fund. Leo continued, leaning forward. Grandma left it for her, right? $50,000. It is just sitting there in a low-yield account. That money is for Lily's tuition, my father said, his voice dropping an octave. It is for her final 2 years at the institute. And what is she studying? Leo asked, gesturing at Lily with his wine glass. Art history, painting, pottery, whatever it is. Let us be honest here. Is that really a career? Or is it just a very expensive way to delay adulthood? Leo, stop, I whispered, reaching for his arm. He shook me off. No, Victoria, we need to be real. I am the breadwinner. I am a sales executive. My career actually generates income. If I cannot walk, I cannot work. If I cannot work, Victoria suffers. But Lily, she can take a semester off. She can work at Starbucks. She can get a loan. Why is her hobby more important than my livelihood? Lily's face crumbled. Tears welled up in her eyes. It is not a hobby, she said, her voice shaking. I have an internship lined up. I have worked so hard. Worked hard? Leo scoffed. You paint pictures. Lily, you do not know the meaning of hard work. I am out there every day hustling to put food on the table. And right now, I am in agony. I am in physical agony. And you are sitting there hoarding $50,000 that you do not even need yet? That is enough, my father barked. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. His face was red, a vein pulsing in his temple. You listen to me, you entitled son of a bitch. My father snarled. Robert, my mother cried out. I do not care. Eleanor, my father shouted, pointing a finger at Leo. You come into my house, you drink my wine, and you dare to demand my daughter's future to pay for your own incompetence? I would rather burn that money than give you a single cent. Leo stared at him, unblinking. He did not back down. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. So that is it. Then, Leo said quietly, you would rather see your son-in-law crippled? You would rather see Victoria struggle to take care of an invalid husband for the rest of her life, just so Princess Lily here can finish her degree in finger painting on time? He looked at me. He turned his head and looked deep into my eyes. Say, Victoria, I told you, they do not care about us. They do not care about you. You are just the spare. Lily is the golden child. They would sacrifice our marriage to protect her playtime. I looked at my father, who was shaking with rage. I looked at Lily, who was sobbing into her napkin. I looked at my mother, who looked helpless. And then I looked at Leo, my husband, the man I had promised to forsake all others for. He looked broken. He looked abandoned. And in that moment, the manipulation took hold. I did not see a greedy monster. I saw a victim. I saw my husband being rejected by the people who were supposed to love me. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but my voice was surprisingly steady. How can you be so cruel? I asked my father. My father looked at me, stunned. Victoria, listen to yourself. He is using you. No, I shouted, tears hot on my cheeks. He is hurting. He needs help, and you have the means to help him. But you refuse because you do not like him. You never liked him. You are punishing him. But you are hurting me. I grabbed the handles of Leo's wheelchair. We are leaving, I announced. Victoria, please, my mother pleaded. Standing up, do not go like this. I ignored her. I spun the wheelchair around, clipping the edge of the dining table. Come on, Leo, I said. We do not need them. I pushed him toward the door. Behind me, I heard Lily sobbing louder. I am sorry. Victoria, Lily cried out. I did not turn back. Inner monologue. She is sorry? She is sitting on a pile of cash while my husband is in danger of losing his leg. And she is sorry? She is selfish. They are all selfish. My father's voice boomed down the hallway as I opened the front door. If you walk out that door with him, Victoria, do not expect me to bail you out when he drags you down. Because he will. He will drag you down to the bottom. I slammed the heavy oak door shut, cutting off his words. The rain was coming down harder now, a deluge that soaked us instantly. I struggled to get Leo into the car. He was dead weight, but he was not complaining anymore. He was silent. As I climbed into the driver's seat, shivering from the cold and the adrenaline, I looked over at him. He was wiping rain from his face. He looked at me, and he reached out, taking my hand. I am so sorry. Baby, he said softly. I did not want to cause a scene. I just... Soyjinghaling. 2 hashes greater than I am so scared. I am scared of losing everything. Thank you for standing up for me. You are the only one I have. My heart broke for him. I squeezed his hand back. I will fix this, I whispered. I do not know how, but I will fix this. He nodded, and then he turned his head to look out the window. I pulled out of the driveway, leaving the warm, lighted windows of my parents' house behind. I drove into the darkness, convinced that I was the righteous one, convinced that I had just defended my family. I did not see the slight smirk on Leo's face as we passed the security gate. I did not see the calculation in his eyes. I only saw the road ahead, blurry through the rain, leading us back to a house that was about to become a prison. I had chosen a side, and I had chosen the wolf. The silence in the car on the way home was heavier than the storm raging outside. It was a thick, a suffocating blanket that pressed against my eardrums. I gripped the steering wheel until my fingers ached, my eyes fixed on the taillights of the car in front of me, blurring into red streaks through the rain-slicked windshield. Beside me, Leo was seething. I could feel the heat of his anger radiating from the passenger seat, a physical force that made the air in the cabin feel thin and electric. He did not speak. He did not say thank you for defending him. He did not reach out to hold my hand again. He just stared straight ahead, his jaw working, grinding his teeth with a sound that made my skin crawl. My inner monologue was a frantic, scrambling mess. I did the right thing, I told myself. I stood by my husband. My father was cruel. He humiliated Leo. I had to leave. But beneath that rehearsed defense, a cold knot of dread was tightening in my stomach. I had just severed ties with my parents. I had walked out on my sister. And for what? For a man who was currently treating me like an Uber driver, he was planning to give a 1-star rating. When we pulled into our driveway, the house looked dark and uninviting. The porch light had burned out days ago, and neither of us had bothered to change it. Now, the darkness felt symbolic. I got out into the rain, rushing to the passenger side to help Leo. I opened the door, extending my hand. He slapped it away. "I can do it myself," he snapped, his voice harsh and guttural. I recoiled, hurt flashing across my face. I watched as he struggled to hoist himself out of the car, grunting with effort, his crutches slipping on the wet pavement. I hovered, terrified he would fall, but too afraid to touch him again. He managed to stabilize himself, glaring at me through the downpour. "Open the door. Victoria, do not just stand there like a statue." I scrambled up the steps, fumbling with my keys. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped them twice. By the time I got the front door open, I was soaked to the bone, my hair plastered to my skull. Leo hobbled inside, tracking mud and rainwater across the hardwood floor I had just polished yesterday. He did not care. He moved into the living room and collapsed onto the sofa, throwing his crutches onto the floor with a clatter that echoed like a gunshot. I closed the door, shutting out the storm, but trapping myself inside with something far more volatile. I turned to face him, wringing my hands. "Leo," I began, my voice trembling. "I am sorry about tonight. I tried. You saw that I tried." He looked up at me. His eyes were not filled with the gratitude I had expected. They were filled with contempt. "You tried?" he mocked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that what you call that display? You let your father talk to me like I was a dog. You let him humiliate me. I stood up for you," I cried, shock piercing through my chest. "I walked out on them. I cut them off for you, and what good does that do me?" He roared, slamming his fist into the sofa cushion. "Does your little temper tantrum fix my leg? Does it pay for the surgery?" "No, we are back exactly where we were. Victoria, I'm broke and broken." He gestured violently at his cast. "Look at this. I am a cripple. And you, Sao Tsing Ho Ling, 2# is greater than you are useless." The word hung in the air. Useless. I felt the tears start to fall, hot and fast. I had given him everything. I had given him my savings. I had given him my dignity. I had given him my family. And it was not enough. It was never enough. "I am not useless," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I love you. I am trying to figure this out." "Figure it out," he mimicked, pitching his voice high to mock me. "You keep saying that, but you never actually do anything. You just cry. You are weak." "Victoria, your father was right about one thing. You are pathetic." I took a step back, wrapping my arms around myself as if to hold my shattering pieces together. This was not the man I married. This was a stranger, a cruel, vicious stranger who knew exactly where to stick the knife to cause the most damage. Leo took a deep breath, wincing as a spasm of pain shot through his leg. The pain seemed to fuel his rage, giving it focus. He looked around the room, his eyes darting frantically, looking for a solution, looking for a victim. "We need money," he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "We need $17,000, and we need it by tomorrow." I wiped my face with the back of my hand. "I do not know where to get it." "Leo, the bank said no. My parents said no." He looked at me, his gaze traveling from my face down to my neck, and then to my hands. He paused, a strange, calculating look entered his eyes. "You do have assets," he said slowly. I followed his gaze. He was looking at my hands. Or rather, he was looking at the empty space on my finger where my engagement ring usually sat. I had taken it off to wash dishes earlier and had forgotten to put it back on. But he was not talking about the ring. He was talking about something else. "Go upstairs," he commanded. "What?" I asked, confused. "Go upstairs to the bedroom," he said, pointing a finger at the ceiling. "Bring me the jewelry box, the blue velvet one." My heart stopped. The blue velvet box. It sat on the top shelf of my closet, hidden behind a stack of winter sweaters. It contained the only things I owned that were truly mine. A string of Mikimoto pearls, a sapphire brooch, and a pair of diamond stud earrings. They were an inheritance from my grandmother, the same grandmother who had set up Lily's college fund. She had left the money to Lily because Lily was the youngest, but she had left the jewelry to me because I was the eldest. She had fastened those pearls around my neck on my wedding day. "For luck," she had whispered, "so you always have something of your own." "No," I whispered. Stepping back, Leo sat up straighter, ignoring the pain in his leg. "What did you say?" I said no. "Leo, that was Grandma's. It is all I have left of her." He laughed. It was a dark, hollow sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. "Sentimental garbage," he spat. "You are holding on to dead people's trinkets while your living husband is suffering? How selfish can you be?" "It is not selfish," I pleaded. "It is my inheritance. It is property," he shouted. "And right now, it is property we can liquidate. Those pearls alone are worth $5,000. The earrings probably another $10,000. That is the surgery. Victoria, that is my leg. That is my life." I shook my head, backing away toward the kitchen. "I cannot sell them. Please. Leo, ask me anything else. I will work double shifts. I will sell the car." "We cannot sell the car because the bank owns it," he yelled. "And your freelance money is peanuts. This is the only way." He grabbed a heavy ceramic coaster from the coffee table and hurled it across the room. It smashed against the wall just inches from my head, exploding into sharp shards of pottery. I screamed, covering my head, crouching down. "Go get the box," he bellowed, his face turning purple with exertion and rage. "Go get it before I drag myself up those stairs and tear this whole house apart." I looked at him, cowering in the hallway. I saw the vein bulging in his neck. I saw the wild, unhinged look in his eyes. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt genuine, physical fear of my husband. I turned and ran up the stairs. My inner monologue was a litany of shame. "Coward. You are a coward. Stand up to him. Tell him to go to hell." But my body was on autopilot, driven by a primal need to stop the screaming, to stop the violence. I entered our bedroom. It smelled of lavender and his cologne, a scent that used to make me feel safe, but now made me nauseous. I went to the closet. I reached up to the top shelf, my hands trembling so violently I almost knocked the box down. I pulled out the blue velvet case. It felt heavy in my hands, heavy with history, heavy with memories. I opened it. The pearls glowed softly in the closet light. Innocent and perfect, the diamonds sparkled. "I am sorry, Grandma," I whispered. "I am so sorry." I closed the lid. I walked back downstairs, my feet feeling like lead. Leo was waiting for me. He had calmed down slightly, but the tension was still there, coiled like a snake ready to strike. I walked over to him and held out the box. I could not look him in the eye. He snatched it from my hands. He opened it greedily, his eyes scanning the contents, not with appreciation, but with the cold appraisal of a pawnbroker. "Good," he muttered. "This should be enough." He looked up at me. I was standing there, shivering in my wet clothes, surrounded by the shards of the broken coaster. "Stop crying, Victoria," he said, his voice returning to that eerie, reasonable tone. "You are making a big deal out of nothing. It is just metal and stone. You can always buy more jewelry later, but you can only save your husband once." He reached out and took my hand. His skin was warm, clammy. "I am doing this for us," he said. "You understand that, right? I am taking charge because you could not." I nodded. I was a puppet. I was a shell. "Yes, Leo," I whispered. "Go make me some tea," he said, closing the box and placing it on his lap, guarding it like a dragon with its hoard, and sweep up that mess on the floor. Someone could get hurt. I walked into the kitchen. I grabbed the broom and dustpan. I returned to the living room and knelt on the floor, sweeping up the jagged pieces of ceramic. I was on my knees, at his feet, cleaning up the mess he had made. While he sat there clutching the price of my dignity, I felt something break inside me then. It was not a loud snap like the coaster. It was a quiet, internal crumbling. The illusion of our partnership was gone. The facade of the loving marriage was dust. I looked at the shards in the dustpan. They were sharp. They were dangerous. Just like him, I thought. But as I stood up to dump the trash, another thought surfaced, cold and clear amidst the wreckage of my emotions. Why did he know exactly how much the earrings were worth? I had never told him the appraisal value. I had kept the insurance papers for the jewelry in my personal file cabinet in the office. A file cabinet that was locked. I looked at Leo, who was now humming softly to himself, examining the sapphire brooch under the lamplight. He had been through my things. He had been planning this. He knew exactly what I had, and he knew exactly how to take it. I walked back to the kitchen, the realization settling in my stomach like a stone. I was not just living with a selfish man, I was living with a thief. And tonight, he had stolen more than just pearls. He had stolen the last remnant of the woman I used to be. The house was silent again, save for the rain. But it was the silence of a tomb, and I was the one buried alive inside it. The jewelry store was quiet, smelling of lemon polish and old money. It was a place where people usually came to celebrate engagements or anniversaries, not to liquidate their heritage to pay for a lie. I stood at the counter, the blue velvet box open between me and the jeweler. An elderly man with a loop stuck in his eye socket. He picked up the pearl necklace, running the milky white spheres through his gloved fingers. "These are exquisite," he murmured. "Akoya pearls. Vintage. You do not see luster like this anymore." I gripped the edge of the glass counter. My inner monologue was screaming at me to snatch the box back and run. "Do not do it, Victoria. Once they are gone, they are gone. You are selling your grandmother's love to buy your husband's silence." The jeweler looked up. "I can offer you $5,000 for the pearls and $12,000 for the diamond studs and the brooch. That is $17,000 total. Cash. $17,000. The exact number. The magic number that would fix my husband's leg and, supposedly, our marriage." I felt a wave of nausea. It was too convenient. It was too clean. Sao Ting Hao Ling. 2# is greater than I need a moment. I stammered. "I cannot decide right now." The jeweler nodded understandingly, probably assuming I was sentimental. He did not know I was terrified. I closed the box, shoving it deep into my purse. I told him I would be back. I walked out into the gray Seattle drizzle, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I could not do it. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed to see the medical bill myself. Leo had shown me a screenshot on his phone, a blurry PDF, but I had never seen the physical paper. I drove to the hospital. Leo had called in a refill for his pain medication, and since he was incapacitated, I was the designated courier. The hospital pharmacy was busy. I took a ticket and stood near the nurse's station, waiting for my number to be called. The air smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. 2 nurses were chatting behind the high counter, sorting through files. They were speaking in that hushed but audible tone people use when they think they are invisible. 小语警号令. 2# is greater than honestly. The guy in 304 was a nightmare. One nurse said, a redhead with tired eyes. She slapped a file onto a stack. 304. My ears pricked up. That was Leo's room number. The one with the tibial fracture? The other nurse asked. Yeah. Mr. Entitled. He kept buzzing the call button every 5 minutes for ice, then complaining the ice was too cold. And get this, he kept badgering Dr. Evans for a quote. A quote? Yeah. He wanted a written estimate for a reconstruction surgery that he does not even need. Dr. Evans told him the fracture is clean. The cast is fine. But this guy, 小语警号令, 2# is greater than. He kept insisting he needed the titanium package and asking if he could get a bill generated for insurance purposes, but not submit it. I froze. The world around me seemed to tilt on its axis. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, drilling into my skull. Wait, the second nurse laughed. So, he wanted a fake bill? Basically. And the best part? His insurance is platinum tier. His company covers 100% of emergency trauma. He did not pay a dime out of pocket. He walked out of here. Well, rolled out, completely covered. I felt like I had been slapped hard. Leo had lied. There was no $17,000 gap. There was no denied claim. The surgery, if he even intended to have it, was fully covered. I turned around and walked out of the pharmacy. I forgot the pain medication. I forgot the rain. I forgot how to breathe. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at the concrete wall. My hands were shaking, not from cold, but from a rage so pure and white-hot it felt like it was burning my veins. He was not just desperate. He was scamming me. He was scamming my parents. He was scamming Lily. But why? If the insurance covered it, why did he need $17,000 cash? I started the car. I drove home with the precision of a machine. The tears were gone. The fear was gone. In their place was a cold, clinical curiosity. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to find them. When I entered the house, it was quiet. Leo was asleep on the sofa, his mouth open, snoring softly. The television was on, playing a rerun of a sitcom, the canned laughter filling the empty room. I took off my shoes so I would not make a sound on the hardwood. I crept toward him. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. It was a terrifying mask. His phone was resting on his chest, rising and falling with his breath. I reached out, my hand steady. I gently lifted the phone. It was locked. Of course. Face ID. I looked at his sleeping face. I needed him to open his eyes, just for a second, without waking up fully. Or, 手语警号令. 2# is greater than I could try the passcode. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I tried 0000. Incorrect. Panic fluttered in my chest. If I woke him up, he would know. He would gaslight me again. Then I remembered. He had been obsessed with that new sales record he set 3 years ago. The commission check that bought his precious lease. $2480. 24,800. I typed in 2480. The padlock icon at the top of the screen unlocked. I let out a silent breath. I moved to the kitchen, out of his line of sight, but close enough to hear if he stirred. I opened his banking app first. It was empty, as I knew, but then I checked the browser history. DraftKings, crypto, online poker. I clicked on the poker site. It logged him in automatically. Current balance, negative $17,450. Debt collection warning. Payment due by Friday or account will be sold to external recovery agency. There it was, the magic number. He had gambled it away. He was in debt to loan sharks or some aggressive collection agency, and he was terrified. He was using his broken leg as a cover story to fleece his own family to pay off his gambling addiction. I felt a surge of disgust, so potent I almost vomited in the sink. He was willing to steal Lily's education fund to cover his losses at a virtual poker table. But then, a notification popped up at the top of the screen. WhatsApp message from Bunny. Bunny, did the old hag cough up the cash yet? My rent is due. Baby, my blood ran cold. Old hag. I opened WhatsApp. The chat history with Bunny went back 6 months. I scrolled, my eyes devouring the words that destroyed my life. Leo. Almost there. She is selling her grandmother's jewelry today. Sad little pathetic thing. Actually cried about it. But I told her it was for my leg. Bun. And Chase. Lol. You are evil. I love it. When do I get my allowance? I saw this Gucci bag. So you Jing Ha, Ling, or Jing Hao Dayu, Leo. As soon as I get the cash, I just have to keep pretending to be in pain. It is exhausting acting this needy. I cannot wait to dump her and get a real apartment with you. She is so boring. Babe, it is like living with a nun who designs logos. Bunny, just make sure you get the money before you leave her. Leo, do not worry. I am squeezing her dry. She is so desperate for me to love her, she will do anything. It is actually kind of sad. I lowered the phone. The kitchen was silent. The refrigerator hummed. The rain tapped against the window. She is so desperate for me to love her, she will do anything. The words echoed in my head, bouncing off the walls of my skull. He was laughing at me. He was mocking my devotion. He was planning to leave me for a girl named Bunny who needed rent money. And he was going to use my grandmother's legacy to fund his exit strategy. I looked down at my hands. They were the hands of a woman who had worked hard, who had loved deeply, who had tried to be good, and he had taken that goodness and twisted it into a weapon to use against me. I walked back into the living room. I stood over him. Leo shifted in his sleep, muttering something unintelligible. He looked vulnerable. A swift kick to his broken leg right now would shatter him. It would be justice, but violence was too easy. Violence was messy. I looked at the phone in my hand. I took photos of everything. The gambling debt, the chat logs, the insults. I emailed them to myself. I saved them to a hidden cloud folder. Then I wiped the browser tabs, closed the apps, and gently placed the phone back on his chest. I stood there for a long moment, watching him breathe. The Victoria who had driven to the hospital an hour ago, the worried wife, the guilt-ridden partner, was dead. She had died in that pharmacy line. The woman standing in the living room now was someone else, I felt a coldness spreading through my chest, replacing the heat of the anger. It was a clarifying cold, like ice water. He wanted a game. He wanted to play poker. He thought he was the player, and I was the chips. But he forgot one thing. I was the one holding the deck. I went upstairs to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were red, but they were dry. They looked sharp. I walked into the bedroom and opened my laptop. I began to type. Not a design brief, not an email. I began to type a document titled Postnuptial Agreement and Asset Disposition. I needed a plan that would hurt him more than a broken leg ever could. A plan that would take everything he thought he was entitled to. I heard Leo stirring downstairs. "Victoria," he yelled, his voice thick with sleep and irritation. "Where are you?" My pillow slipped. I closed the laptop. I took a deep breath. I put a smile on my face. It was a brittle, sharp smile, like the edge of a diamond. "Coming, darling," I called back. I walked down the stairs, descending into the arena. The walk down the stairs felt like a descent into the underworld. But this time, I was not the lost soul wandering in the dark. I was the architect of the dungeon. My hand trailed along the banister, feeling the smooth wood that we had sanded and stained together 3 summers ago. Back then, I thought we were building a home. Now, I knew we were just building a stage for his performance. I walked into the living room. Leo was awake, shifting irritably on the couch. The television was blaring, a car insurance commercial, a cruel irony that almost made me laugh out loud. "You took forever," he grumbled, not looking away from the screen. "My pillow is flat, my water is warm, and I am starving. Did you even go to the grocery store?" I did not flinch. Yesterday, his tone would have sent me scrambling, apologizing, shrinking into myself. Today, it just sounded like background noise, like the buzzing of a fly that was about to be swatted. I sat down on the edge of the coffee table, directly in his line of sight. I clasped my hands together in my lap, adopting the posture of the submissive, pleading wife he had trained me to be. I forced my lower lip to tremble slightly. It was a muscle memory I was now using against him. "Leo," I said softly. He sighed, muttering something under his breath before turning his head toward me. His eyes were dull, glazed over with boredom and a hint of the painkillers he was abusing. "What now? Victoria, are you going to cry again? Because I really do not have the energy for your emotions right now." "I have news," I said, keeping my voice low and wavering. "Good news." His ears perked up. The dullness in his eyes vanished, replaced by a sharp, greedy flicker. He sat up straighter, wincing slightly, but ignoring the pain in favor of the potential payout. "Did you sell the jewelry?" he asked. "How much did you get?" I shook my head. "Better?" I whispered. I called my parents again. I called them from the car. I begged them. "Leo," I told them everything you said. I told them how much you were suffering. I told them that if you did not get this surgery, our lives would be over. Leo leaned forward. The air in the room seemed to change, charged with his anticipation. "And so you think how, Ling? 2 is greater than they agreed." I lead. The words tasted like ash, but they flowed out smooth as silk. They felt guilty. Leo, especially Dad. He realized he was too harsh last night. He does not want to see you crippled. He does not want to see us fail. Leo let out a bark of laughter. It was a triumphant, ugly sound. He slapped his hand against his thigh. "I knew it," he crowed. "I knew the old man would crack. It was all a power play. Victoria, he just wanted to see us beg. He wanted to assert his dominance. But when push comes to shove, he knows he cannot leave his daughter's husband out to dry. He looked at me, a smug grin plastering his face. See? I told you to handle it. You just have to know how to push their buttons. So, when do we get the check? Today? Can you go pick it up? I paused. This was the pivot point. The moment where I had to set the hook deep enough that he would not be able to spit it out. There is a condition, I said. Leo's smile faltered. His eyebrows drew together. What condition? They are not giving us cash, I explained, weaving the fabrication with details I knew would appeal to his logic. They are going to liquidate a bond that was maturing next month. It is exactly $17,000. But, Xiao Yu Jinghao Ling, 2 hash is greater than dad is being dad. What does that mean? Leo snapped. He wants it to be a formal business transaction. I said, he says he cannot just hand over that kind of money without paperwork. He wants to teach us, teach you, about responsibility. So, he is insisting on a loan agreement. Leo rolled his eyes, groaning loudly. Of course he is. The control freak. He wants me to sign an IOU? Fine. Whatever. I will sign his little piece of paper if it shuts him up and gets me the money. It is a little more than an IOU. I added, my heart rate picking up. He wants to secure the loan. He says since the money is coming from Lily's future fund, he needs collateral. He wants us to sign a post-nuptial agreement regarding the house. Leo froze. The room went silent. A post-nup? He repeated, his voice dropping. He wants the house? Not the house. I corrected, quickly. Just a guarantee. Basically, the agreement says that if we divorce, or if Xiao Yu Jinghao Ling, 2 hash is greater than if anything happens to the money. The house is the collateral. It is just to protect Lily's interest. He says it is standard procedure for a loan of this size within a family. I watched him process this. I could see the gears turning in his head. He was calculating the risk. He looked at the house around us, the walls, the furniture, the life we had built. The house was the only asset we had. It was the only thing with equity. But here was the thing about Leo. He was a gambler. And right now, he was desperate. He had a gambling debt deadline hanging over his head like a guillotine. He needed that $17,000 to pay off the sharks before they broke his other leg. He did not care about a hypothetical divorce in the future. He cared about surviving the week. Besides, his ego was his blind spot. He thought I was a nun who designs logos. He thought I was desperate for his love. In his mind, I would never leave him. I would never divorce him. So, signing a post-nup was a zero-risk move for him because he believed he owned me completely. He looked at me, searching my face for any sign of treachery. I kept my eyes wide, innocent, filled with a mixture of hope and anxiety. I told him we could not do it. I said, feigning reluctance. I told him it was insulting, but he said it is the money or nothing. Leo scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. It is fine. Victoria, it is just paper. Your dad is trying to scare me. He thinks I'm going to run off with the money? Please, I am not going anywhere. This is my house too. So, Xiao Yu Jinghao Ling, 2 hash is greater than you will sign it? I asked. Yes, I will sign it, he said impatiently. Just get the damn paperwork and get the money. I have bills to pay. I mean, Xiao Yu Jinghao Ling, 2# is greater than the surgeon requires a deposit by Friday. I nodded, hiding the dark satisfaction curling in my gut. Okay, I said. Dad is having his lawyer send over the draft. We can sign it tomorrow. He is coming over with Mom and Lily to bring the check. Leo's face soured. They are coming here? Again? They want to see that you are okay. I lead, and they want to witness the signing. It has to be notarized. Fine. Leo Spot, let them come. I will smile. I will sign their stupid contract, and then I will take their money and fix my leg. And after that, Victoria, things are going to change around here. I am done being treated like a second-class citizen by your family. You are right, Leo, I said, standing up. Things are definitely going to change. I walked into the kitchen to start dinner. My hands were steady as I chopped the onions. I did not cry. I had no tears left for onions, or for him, that night, while Leo slept in the guest room downstairs. He claimed the stairs were too difficult, but I knew he just wanted to be closer to the liquor cabinet. I went to work. I did not wait for my father's lawyer. I could not involve my father yet. I had to do this myself. I spent 4 hours on legal forums and document preparation sites. I downloaded a template for a post-nuptial agreement with fidelity and financial infidelity clauses. I read every word. I edited the clauses with the precision of a surgeon. Clause 4. Section B. In the event of marital dissolution precipitated by adultery or financial fraud, including, but not limited to, gambling debts concealed from the spouse, misappropriation of marital funds, the offending party waives all rights to the marital home and any equity therein. It was ruthless. It was ironclad. I also drafted a promissory note for the loan, referencing the post-nup as the governing security instrument. I printed the documents on our home printer. The sound of the paper sliding through the tray was rhythmic, hypnotic. Zip-zap, zip-zap. It sounded like a trap snapping shut. I sat back in my office chair, holding the warm stack of papers. I looked out the window at the rainy street. Leo thought he was playing a short con. He thought he was tricking my parents out of $17,000 to pay a bookie, and that life would go on as usual. He thought he would keep his wife, keep his house, keep his mistress, and keep his secret. He had no idea that he was about to sign his own eviction notice. I checked my email one last time. The photos of his texts with Bunny, the screenshots of his gambling account, they were all there, organized in a folder named The Exit. I went to bed, but I did not sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain. I rehearsed the confrontation in my head. I practiced my lines. I practiced my facial expressions. Tomorrow would be the performance of a lifetime. I had to be the loving wife one last time. I had to be the bridge between his greed and his destruction. I thought about Lily. I thought about how she had cried at the dinner table. I thought about how Leo had called her degree finger painting. Do not worry, Lily. I thought, he is going to pay for that. He's going to pay for every tear. The morning arrived gray and sullen. I woke up before the alarm. I dressed in a crisp white shirt and black trousers. It felt like armor. I went downstairs. Leo was already awake, scrolling on his phone, probably checking the odds on a game or messaging Bunny. He quickly locked the screen when I entered. "Is it today?" he asked, not even saying good morning. "Yes," I said, pouring him coffee. "They will be here at noon. Make sure you have a pen," he said, taking the mug without looking at me. "A working one. I want this over with." I smiled at his back, a cold, razor-thin smile. Do not worry, Leo, I said. I have everything prepared. I walked to the front door and unlocked it. I was letting the Trojan horse in. But this time, the soldiers inside were not coming to destroy the city. They were coming to liberate it. The trap was set, the bait was laid, and the rat was hungry. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 12 times. Each hollow bong vibrated through the floorboards, signaling the start of the execution. I stood by the window, watching the rain slant sideways against the glass. It was a torrential downpour, the kind that drowned out all other sounds, turning the world into a gray, watery blur. Behind me, Leo was vibrating with nervous energy. He had insisted on shaving and putting on a dress shirt, though he still wore basketball shorts over his cast. He sat at the head of the dining table, his crutches leaning against the chair like weapons at rest. He looked like a king waiting for his tribute. They are late, he muttered, checking his watch for the third time in 2 minutes. Do you think they backed out? If your father tries to pull a fast one, Victoria, I swear to God, Sao Yu Ding Hao Ling, R. Ding Hao Dayu, they are not backing out, I said, turning to face him. My voice was calm, eerily so. I felt light, unmoored from the gravity of my emotions. The fear was gone, the sadness was gone. There was only the cold precision of the task at hand. They are just parking. Leo smoothed his hair back. He picked up the pen I had placed on the table, a heavy, expensive fountain pen I had bought him for his promotion last year. He clicked the cap on and off. Click, click, click. The sound grated on my nerves, but I did not show it. I had set the stage perfectly. On the table sat a single manila envelope containing the legal documents I had drafted the night before. Next to it was a glass of water for him, and hidden beneath a stack of magazines on the sideboard was another folder. The evidence. The doorbell rang. Leo sat up straighter, putting on his mask of suffering. He slumped slightly, wincing as if the mere sound of the bell caused him agony. Let them in, he commanded. And remember, Victoria, look sad, look desperate. We need them to feel guilty. I walked to the door. Inner monologue. You have no idea how desperate I am. Leo, desperate to see the look on your face when your world crumbles. I opened the door. My parents stood there, huddled under a large black umbrella. My father, Robert, looked grim, his jaw set in a line of granite. My mother, Eleanor, looked pale, her eyes darting past me into the house. And behind them was Lily. She looked different today. The tearful girl from dinner was gone. She looked angry. I stepped aside. Thank you for coming, I said formally. My father nodded. He did not hug me. He knew what we had to do. I had called them at 6 a.m. I had told them everything. The gambling, the lies, the woman named Bunny. I had sent them the screenshots. My father had wanted to bring the police, but I told him no. This was personal. This had to be done my way. They walked into the dining room, shaking the rain from their coats. Leo beamed at them, a shark smiling at a school of fish. Robert, Eleanor, he said, his voice dripping with faux humility. Thank you so much for coming. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this. I know things got heated the other night, and I want to apologize. Pain makes us say crazy things. My father stared at him. He did not sit down. Let us just get this over with. Leo, my father said, his voice cold and hard. Right, Leo said, unfazed. Business first. I respect that. He gestured to the empty chairs. Please, sit. Victoria, get your parents some coffee. We are fine, my mother said sharply. Leo shrugged. He looked at Lily. Lily, glad you could make it. No hard feelings about the fund, right? It is just a loan. You will get it back with interest before you know it. Think of it as an investment in your brother-in-law. Lily looked at him with pure loathing. She opened her mouth to speak, but I caught her eye and gave a subtle shake of my head. Wait. Leo tapped the manila envelope on the table. So, this is the paperwork? He asked. The post-nup and the loan agreement. Yes, I said. Stepping forward, I picked up the document and slid it toward him. I opened it to the signature page, keeping the text of the clauses folded under. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. This was it. If he read it, if he actually read the fine print about financial fraud and adultery, he would never sign. He would tear it up and storm out. Inner monologue. Please be arrogant. Please be lazy. Please be the man I know you are. Leo looked at the thick stack of papers. He looked at the signature line. Jesus. Victoria, this is like a novel. He joked. Your dad really does not trust me, does he? He looked up at my father. You know I love her, right? This house, Sayuting 2 is greater than it is just a building. Victoria is my life. I would sign anything to take care of her, then sign it, my father said. Leo picked up the fountain pen. The nib hovered over the paper. Time seemed to stretch, slowing down until I could see the dust motes dancing in the dim light. He did not read it. He did not even glance at the header. He just wanted the money. He wanted the $17,000 to silence the bookies and pay for his mistress. He signed his name with a flourish. Leo J. Sterling. He pushed the papers toward me. Done, he said, leaning back with a satisfied grin. Sealed in blood, or ink, whatever. Now, where's the check? I picked up the signed document. I checked the signature. It was valid. It was witnessed by 3 people. I walked over to the sideboard and placed the contract in a drawer. Then, I picked up the second folder, the one hidden under the magazines. I walked back to the table and placed it in front of him. Here is your payment. Leo, I said softly. He frowned, looking at the thin folder. What is this? A cashier check? Open it, I said. He opened the folder. The first page was not a check. It was a printout from the insurance company portal. It showed his claim status. Approved. Coverage 100%. Patient responsibility $0. Leo stared at it, his brow furrowed. I do not understand, he said, a nervous chuckle escaping his lips. What is this? Turn the page, I commanded. He turned the page. It was a screenshot of his online poker account. Balance, negative $17,450. The color drained from his face. It happened instantly, like someone had pulled a plug. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with sudden terror. Victoria, Sayu Jinghao Ling, Jinghao Dayu. Turn the page, I said, my voice rising, vibrating with the suppressed rage of 5 wasted years. He did not want to. His hand trembled, but he turned it. It was the chat log with Bunny. The text was blown up, clear as day. Old hag, pathetic, squeezing her dry. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of a bomb that had just detonated. The split second before the shockwave hits, Leo looked at the paper, then at me, then at my parents. He realized, finally, that this was not a business meeting. It was an ambush. You hacked my phone. He whispered, "That is illegal. You invaded my privacy. You invaded my life." I screamed. The sound tore out of my throat, raw and guttural. It startled everyone, including me. I slammed the table, leaning into his face. "You lied to me. You told me you needed surgery. You made me beg my parents. You tried to steal Lily's future. And for what? For poker? For a girl named Bunny who thinks I am an old hag?" Leo's face twisted. The mask of the victim fell away completely, revealing the snarling, cornered animal underneath. He crumpled the papers in his fist and threw them at me. "So what?" he yelled back, his voice cracking. "So I gambled. So I lost some money. I was trying to win it back for us. And, yeah, maybe I talked some trash because I was stressed out living with you. You are suffocating. Victoria, you are boring and you are weak." He tried to stand up, forgetting his crutches. He stumbled, catching himself on the edge of the table. "Give me the money," he demanded, pointing a shaking finger at my father. "You promised me. I signed your stupid paper." My father stepped forward. He was 65 years old, but in that moment, he looked like a titan. "There is no money." "Leo," my father said calmly, "and that paper you just signed? That was not a loan agreement." Leo froze. "What?" "It was a confession," I said, stepping back to stand beside my father. "And a transfer of assets." I pulled a copy of the clause from my pocket and read it aloud, my voice steady and cold. "In the event of proven financial fraud or adultery, the undersigned party forfeits all equity and rights to the marital residence located at 42 Evergreen Terrace." I looked at him. "You just signed the house over to me. Leo, you own nothing." Leo looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. His face turned a violent shade of purple. The realization hit him. He had been outplayed. The dumb wife, the logo designer, the nun had just checkmated him. "You bitch," he screamed. "You manipulating bitch?" He lunged at me. He pushed off the table, ignoring his broken leg, driven by blind rage. He reached across the mahogany, his hands clawing for my throat. Lily screamed, but he never reached me. My father moved with a speed I did not know he possessed. He stepped in front of me and shoved Leo backward. It was a hard, decisive shove. Leo lost his balance. He flailed, his cast hitting the table leg, and he crashed to the floor in a heap of limbs and curses. He landed hard on his injured leg. He howled. It was a sound of genuine agony this time, not the performance he had been putting on for days. He rolled on the floor, clutching his knee, sobbing and swearing. My mother pulled Lily and me back. My father stood over him, breathing hard, adjusting his cuffs. "Get up," my father said. "My leg," Leo screamed. "You broke my leg. I will sue you. I will sue all of you." "You are not suing anyone," I said, walking around the table to look down at him. "Because if you do, I will release these chat logs to everyone. Your boss, your clients, your mother." Leo stopped screaming. He looked up at me from the floor, sweat beading on his forehead. "You would not," he said. "Try me," I said. I pointed to the door. "Get out of my house." "Leo," he stared at me, disbelief warring with pain. "You cannot kick me out. I am injured. I have rights. This is my home." "Not anymore," I said. "You signed it away. Remember? Sealed in ink." I grabbed his crutches from where they had fallen and threw them onto the floor next to him. They clattered loudly. "Get Out, Leo struggled to a sitting position. He looked at my parents, then at Lily, looking for a weak link, someone who would take pity on him. But there was no pity in that room, only disgust. He grabbed the crutches. He hauled himself up, grunting and gasping. He stood on one leg, swaying unsteadily. He looked small. He looked pathetic. Fine. He spat, wiping saliva from his chin. Keep the damn house. It is a money pit anyway. And you, Sao Yu Ting Hao Ling, Ar Ting Hao Dayu. He glared at me with eyes full of venom. You will regret this. Victoria, you are nothing without me. You will be a lonely, divorced spinster with a house you cannot afford. You will come crawling back. I walked to the front door and threw it open. The rain was still pouring, a curtain of gray water. I will take my chances, I said. Leo hobbled toward the door. As he passed me, he tried to shoulder check me, but I stepped aside, and he stumbled onto the porch. The rain hit him instantly, soaking his dress shirt, plastering his hair to his skull. He turned back one last time, shivering, water dripping from his nose. Where am I supposed to go? He shouted over the sound of the storm. I have no money. I have nowhere to go. Go to Bunny, I yelled back. Tell her the old hag sent you. I slammed the door. I locked the deadbolt. Click. I locked the handle. Click. I engaged the security chain. Rattle. I turned around and leaned against the door, my legs finally giving way. I slid down to the floor, burying my face in my hands. The room was silent, save for the sound of my own ragged breathing and the rain hammering against the wood at my back. Victoria? My mother's voice was soft. I looked up. My family was standing there. They were safe. I was safe. It was over. The tumor had been cut out. There would be scars. Yes, there would be pain, but the rot was gone. I let out a laugh. It was a shaky, wet sound, half sob, half hysteria. He signed it, I whispered. He actually signed it. Lily ran over and hugged me. My parents joined her. We sat on the floor of the hallway, a tangle of arms and relief. Outside, I heard a car engine struggle to start, then rev aggressively. Then, the sound of tires screeching on wet pavement, fading into the distance. He was gone, but as I sat there, holding my sister's hand, I knew the war was not quite over. Leo was desperate, and desperate men do not just disappear. They come back, or they send their ghosts to haunt you. But for now, the house was mine, and the silence, the beautiful, empty silence, was mine too. The locksmith arrived at 2 in the afternoon. His name was Stan, a burly man with a gray mustache and a tool belt that jingled like wind chimes. He worked in silence, drilling out the deadbolt on the front door. The sound was harsh, a mechanical grinding that vibrated through the frame and into my bones. But to me, it sounded like a choir of angels. Every metal shaving that fell to the porch floor represented a link to Leo being severed. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, watching the process. My parents had left an hour ago, taking Lily with them. They wanted me to come back to Bellevue, to the safety of the gated community, but I refused. Leaving the house felt like conceding territory. If I left, Leo might come back. He might break a window. He might squat in the living room and claim tenants' rights. Possession was 9/10 of the law, and I was not giving up a single inch. My phone had been buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. I had silenced it, but the screen kept lighting up. Notifications from Facebook, messages from mutual friends, even a text from a neighbor 3 doors down. Leo had not gone quietly into the night. He had gone online. I finally picked up the phone. I opened Facebook. There, at the top of my feed, was a long, rambling post from Leo Sterling. He had tagged me. He had tagged my sister. He had even tagged the local church we attended on Christmas and Easter. "Please pray for me," the post began. "My wife, Victoria, kicked me out of our home today. I am suffering from a severe leg injury and need surgery. But instead of support, I was met with cruelty. She and her wealthy family have abandoned me on the street with nothing but the clothes on my back. I am in agony, sleeping in my car, while she sits in our warm house. I never thought the woman I loved could be so heartless." Below the text was a photo of his cast, propped up on the dashboard of his car, looking pathetic and gray against the rainy backdrop. The comments were already rolling in. People I had known for years, friends from college, distant cousins, the woman who did my nails, were expressing their outrage. "Stay strong. Leo, this is abuse. How could she? You are injured. Call the police. Men, you have rights." I felt a flash of heat rise in my cheeks. The injustice of it was suffocating. He was controlling the narrative. He was painting himself as the martyr and me as the monster. For a moment, my finger hovered over the comment button. I wanted to type it all out. He is a gambler. He has a mistress. He tried to steal my sister's tuition, but I stopped. Inner monologue. Do not engage. That is what he wants. He wants a public fight. He wants to drag you down into the mud so he can look like you're equal. If you argue, you look defensive. If you stay silent, you look guilty. I put the phone down. I turned to Stan the locksmith. "Can you install a camera?" I asked. "A doorbell camera?" Stan looked up, wiping grease from his hands. "I have a Ring unit in the truck," he said. "I can have it up in 10 minutes. Do it," I said. By 4 in the afternoon, the rain had stopped, leaving the cul-de-sac glistening and damp. The neighborhood was waking up from its midday lull. Garage doors were opening. Kids were coming home from school. And then he returned. I saw him on the new camera feed on my phone before I heard him. Leo's car, a leased BMW that was 3 months behind on payments, rolled slowly down the street. He parked right in front of the house, blocking the driveway. He did not get out immediately. He sat there for a few minutes, likely building up his courage, or checking his likes on Facebook. I watched from the living room window. Hidden behind the sheer curtains, I felt my heart rate spike. A primal fight or flight response. But I was done flying. Leo opened his car door. He struggled out, making a show of his difficulty. He had his crutches. He hobbled up the driveway, his face set in a grimace of determination. He reached the front door and tried the handle. It was locked. He tried to shove it open. It did not budge. "Victoria," he shouted, "open this door. I know you are in there." I did not answer. He pounded on the wood with his fist. Thud, thud, thud. "This is my house. You cannot lock me out. I have rights." The noise was attracting attention. Across the street, Mrs. Higgins, the president of the Homeowners Association, stepped out onto her porch. She was a woman who lived for drama, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. 2 doors down, Mr. Henderson paused while walking his golden retriever. Leo saw his audience. He turned toward Mrs. Higgins, amplifying his performance. "Mrs. Higgins," he called out, his voice cracking theatrically. "Please, help me. Victoria has locked me out. I need my medication. I am in severe pain. Mrs. Higgins frowned. Clutching her cardigan tighter, she began to walk across the street, her face a mask of concern. Leo, dear? She asked. What is going on? She will not let me in, Leo cried, gesturing at the house with a crutch. She is trying to kill me. I have nowhere to go. I knew I could not hide anymore. If I let him spin this tale to Mrs. Higgins, I would be the pariah of the neighborhood by dinner time. I opened the front door. I stepped out onto the porch. I stood tall, my arms at my sides. Leo spun around, a triumphant sneer flickering across his face before he smoothed it back into a look of anguish. Victoria, baby, please, he pleaded, playing to the crowd. Just let me get my things. Let me come inside. It is cold out here. Go away. Leo, I said calmly, my voice carried clearly in the crisp afternoon air. Mrs. Higgins stopped at the bottom of the driveway. She looked from Leo to me. Victoria, maybe you should let him in, she suggested tentatively. He is injured. Dear, whatever squabble you two are having, surely it can wait until he is healed. I looked at Mrs. Higgins. Then I looked at Leo. This is not a squabble. Mrs. Higgins, I said, and he is not the victim here. I walked down the steps, stopping halfway. I held up my phone. Leo, I said, I saw your Facebook post. He flinched. I just told the truth. He muttered, the truth? I repeated, did you tell them about the $17,000 you gambled away? Leo's eyes widened. He looked around nervously. Mr. Henderson had stopped walking his dog and was now listening intently. Keep your voice down, Leo hissed. Did you tell them about the loan sharks? I continued, raising my voice slightly. Did you tell them that you tried to force my parents to liquidate my little sister's college fund to pay your bookie? Mrs. Higgins gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. That is a lie, Leo shouted, his face turning red. She is lying. She is hysterical. I took a step closer to him. And did you tell them about Bunny? I asked. Leo froze. Who is Bunny? Mrs. Higgins asked, her curiosity overriding her propriety. His mistress. I said flatly, the one he was texting while I was at the pharmacy picking up his pain pills. The one he promised to run away with as soon as he scammed my family out of the money. The silence on the street was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Leo looked at the neighbors. He saw the shift in their expressions. Mrs. Higgins' face had gone from concern to disgust. Mr. Henderson was shaking his head slowly. The sympathy he had cultivated online was evaporating in the harsh light of reality. You are crazy, Leo stammered, backing away. You are making this up. I have the screenshots. Leo, I said, I have the bank statements, and I have the postnuptial agreement you signed yesterday. The one where you admitted to financial fraud. I pointed to his car. Get in your car and leave. Now, before I call the police and show them the text messages where you threatened me. Leo looked at the house. He looked at me. For a second, I thought he might attack me again. His hands gripped the crutches so hard his knuckles were white. But he was a coward. He was a bully who only struck when he had the upper hand. Right now, stripped of his lies, he was nothing. He spat on the driveway. Fine, he sneered. Keep the house. It is haunted by your misery anyway. You are going to die alone. Victoria. He turned and hobbled back to his car. It was a slow, humiliating retreat. He threw his crutches into the back seat and dragged himself into the driver's side. He slammed the door. He started the engine. It sputtered once before catching. He revved it loudly, a final act of impotent aggression, and peeled away from the curb. His tires screeching against the asphalt, I watched him go. I watched until his taillights disappeared around the corner. I let out a long breath. My knees felt weak. Mrs. Higgins was still standing at the end of the driveway. She looked at me with a new expression. It was not pity. It was respect. I am so sorry. Victoria, she said softly. We had no idea. I nodded. It is okay. Mrs. Higgins. Nobody knew. Not even me. I turned and walked back up the steps. I went inside and closed the door. I locked the new deadbolt. Click. I leaned against the wood. I was safe, but I knew the fallout was just beginning. The rumors would spread. The Facebook comments would turn into whispers at the grocery store. I would be the woman whose husband gambled everything away. I would be the divorcee. But as I looked around my quiet, empty living room, I realized something important. I would rather be the divorcee with her dignity than the wife of a fraud. I walked into the kitchen. I picked up my phone. I opened Facebook. I did not write a long post. I did not rant. I simply changed my relationship status from married to separated. Then I posted one photo. It was not of Leo. It was a picture of the view from my back porch. The gray sky, the evergreen trees, the sturdy fence that marked my boundary. Caption, starting over. The truth always comes out in the end. I put the phone down. I poured myself a glass of water. My hand was steady. The public shaming was over. The private healing could begin. But first, I had to survive the night in this big, empty house, knowing that somewhere out there in the dark, Leo was desperate, broke, and blaming me for every single one of his mistakes. The adrenaline that had fueled my public stand against Leo evaporated as soon as the sun went down, leaving behind a hollow, aching exhaustion that settled deep in my marrow. The house was silent. It was a silence so profound it felt heavy, pressing against my eardrums like water pressure at the bottom of the ocean. For 5 years, this house had been filled with the sounds of Leo, his heavy footsteps, the drone of the television he never turned off, his complaints about his job, his laughter when he was watching his sports games. Now, the absence of those sounds was a physical presence, a ghost haunting the hallways. I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by the remnants of the day. The broken ceramic shards were gone, swept away, but the memory of his violence lingered. I looked at the spot on the rug where he had stood and screamed at me. I expected to feel triumphant. I expected to feel the surge of liberation that movies always promised when the heroine finally kicks the bad guy out. But I did not feel like a hero. I felt like a survivor of a natural disaster, surveying the wreckage of my life and wondering how I was supposed to rebuild from rubble. My inner monologue was a treacherous thing. In the quiet, the anger receded, and the doubt began to creep in. Did I go too far? The voice whispered, "He is injured. He has nowhere to go. What if he gets an infection? What if he hurts himself? Am I a monster?" I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing the heels of my hands into my sockets until I saw stars. This was the conditioning. This was the result of years of him chipping away at my reality, making me responsible for his well-being while he took no responsibility for mine. I had to remind myself of the facts, the gambling, the lies, the name-calling, the woman named Bunny. I stood up. I needed to move. I needed to purge the house of him before I lost my resolve. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a box of heavy-duty black trash bags. I marched upstairs to the bedroom. It still smelled like him. a mixture of sandalwood cologne and the stale, metallic scent of his sweat. I opened his closet. His clothes hung there in neat rows, shirts color coordinated, a task he had made me do because he said it helped him think. I grabbed a handful of hangers. I did not fold the shirts. I stripped them off the plastic hooks and shoved them into the bag. Blue Oxfords, gray slacks, the cashmere sweater my parents had given him for Christmas 2 years ago. The one he said was itchy, but wore anyway because it made him look rich. I worked with a feverish intensity. I cleared the shelves. I dumped his sock drawer. I threw in his toiletries from the bathroom counter. The expensive face cream he insisted on. The electric razor. The half-empty bottle of painkillers. As I reached for the nightstand drawer, my hand brushed against a small, leather-bound book. I paused. It was a photo album. I pulled it out and opened it. It was from our honeymoon in Napa Valley. There was a photo of us standing in a vineyard, the sun setting behind us, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. Leo had his arm around me. He was smiling down at me, and I was looking up at him with an expression of such pure, unadulterated adoration. It made my stomach turn. I looked at that girl in the photo. She looked so happy. She thought she had won the lottery. She thought this man was her protector. She had no idea that the man holding her was already calculating how much he could take from her. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I was not crying for him. I was crying for her. I was grieving the death of my own innocence. I was mourning the time I had wasted loving a mirage. I closed the album. I did not throw it in the bag. I walked over to the trash can in the corner of the room and dropped it in. It landed with a dull thud. Goodbye. Of Victoria. I thought, the old version of you is dead. My phone buzzed on the bed. I jumped, my heart skipping a beat. I was terrified it might be him. A text threatening me. A picture of him sleeping on a park bench to make me feel guilty. It was not him. It was a text from a mutual friend, Sarah. Sarah was the wife of one of Leo's old college buddies. We had gone to dinner with them once a month for years. Hey Vic, the message read, I just wanted to check on you. Jason just got a call from Leo. He is frantic. I sat down on the edge of the mattress, the plastic trash bag crinkling under my weight. I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly. What did he say? The 3 dots of her typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. He asked to borrow money. He said you went crazy and kicked him out over a misunderstanding. He wanted to crash on our couch. But Jason told him no. We saw your Facebook post. Victoria. We had no idea about the gambling or the other woman. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. They believed me. The truth was a shield. Where is he? I asked. He said he is at the Motel 6 off the highway. Sarah replied, the cheap one. He said his credit cards were declined at the Marriott. He was crying. Vic, he sounded, Sauting howling. 2 hekje is groter dan broken. Broken. The word hung in the air. A part of me. The part that had nursed him through the flu. The part that had rubbed his back when he was stressed. Wanted to drive to the Motel 6. I imagined him lying on a lumpy mattress, his leg throbbing, alone in the dark. But then I remembered the text message to Bunny. She is so desperate for me to love her, she will do anything. He was banking on my pity. He was counting on me being too weak to let him suffer. If I went to him now, if I sent him money, if I even answered his call, I would prove him right. I would be the pathetic, desperate woman, he mocked. He is where he belongs. Sarah. I typed back, thank you for checking on me. I put the phone down. I tied the knot on the trash bag. I dragged it downstairs, the plastic bumping against each step. I hauled it out to the garage and threw it next to the recycling bin. I walked back to the kitchen and locked the door. I was hungry, but the thought of food was repulsive. I made a cup of tea instead. Chamomile. My grandmother used to say chamomile could soothe a troubled soul. I sat at the kitchen island, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. The house settled around me. The refrigerator hummed. The wind outside rattled the gutters. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was an emptiness, a vast, hollow space where my anxiety used to be. For years, I had lived in a state of constant, low-level panic. Was Leo happy? Did I spend too much at the grocery store? Did I look okay? Was he going to be in a bad mood when he got home? Now, there was nobody to please. There was nobody to fear. The silence was not lonely. It was spacious, but the scars were there. I found myself checking the lock on the back door 3 times. I found myself flinching when the ice maker dropped cubes into the tray. I caught my reflection in the dark window and saw a woman who looked 10 years older than 32. My mind replayed the last 24 hours on a loop. The look on his face when he signed the papers, the sound of his scream when he fell, the venom in his voice when he cursed me on the driveway. I knew this was not the end of the pain. The lawyers would come next. The divorce proceedings would be messy. He would fight for spousal support. He would try to claim half the house despite the post-nup. He would lie to the judge. He would drag my name through the mud. But for tonight, the war was paused. I finished my tea. I rinsed the mug and placed it in the dishwasher. I turned off the kitchen lights, plunging the downstairs into darkness. I walked up the stairs, alone. I went into the bathroom and brushed my teeth. I looked at the second toothbrush in the holder. His toothbrush, blue and white. I grabbed it and threw it in the trash. I went into the bedroom. I stripped the sheets off the bed, the sheets he had slept on, the sheets he had sweated in while dreaming of another life with another woman. I threw them in the hamper and pulled fresh, crisp linen from the closet. I made the bed. I smoothed the comforter. I climbed in. It felt huge. There was so much space. I lay in the middle, spreading my arms out, claiming the territory. I closed my eyes. I waited for the tears to come, but they did not. I was dry. I was empty. I was free. But as sleep finally began to pull me under, a final thought drifted through my mind. A warning from the deepest part of my intuition. Leo was at a Motel 6 with a broken leg and no money. He was a narcissist who had lost his supply. He was cornered, and cornered animals were the most dangerous kind. He would not just fade away. He would try one last thing. He would try to hurt me where I was most vulnerable. I did not know what it would be, but I knew I had to be ready. I reached out and pulled my phone onto the pillow next to me. I checked the camera feed one last time. The driveway was empty. The street was quiet. Good night, Victoria. I whispered to the empty room. I slept, but it was the light, fitful sleep of a soldier in the trenches, waiting for the dawn and the next wave of the attack. 6 months later, the Seattle sky finally decided to offer a truce. The relentless gray curtain parted, revealing a pale, watery blue that felt less like a promise and more like a hesitant apology. I sat in the conference room of my lawyer's office downtown. The table was mahogany, polished to a mirror shine, reflecting my own face back at me. I looked different than the woman who had sat in that hospital waiting room. My hair was shorter, cut into a sharp bob. My clothes were tailored. The dark circles under my eyes were gone, replaced by a clarity that some might call coldness. Across the table sat Leo. He looked like a man who had been chewed up and spat out by the universe. He was wearing a suit that was a size too big, hanging loosely off his frame. His skin was sallow, the healthy tan of his sales days replaced by the pallor of cheap motel living. But the most striking thing was the cane. It was a cheap aluminum cane from a drugstore. He leaned it against the table. The irony was so thick it almost choked me. He had lied about needing reconstructive surgery to scam my family. He had claimed he would be a cripple without $17,000. But in the end, because he had been kicked out, because he had no money for physical therapy, and because he had refused to follow the standard insurance-covered rehab protocol out of spite, his leg had healed poorly. He had a permanent limp now, a hitch in his step that would never go away. He had manifested his own lie into reality. "Sign here," my lawyer said, sliding the final decree across the table. Leo picked up the pen. His hand shook. This was not the arrogant flourish of the man who had signed the postnup. This was the tremor of a defeated man. He signed. "It is done," the lawyer said. Leo looked up at me. His eyes were red-rimmed. For a moment, I thought he was going to scream, to rage, to blame me one last time. But he just looked tired. "Bunny left me. You know," he said, his voice raspy. I did not blink. I assumed she would. I replied, "Once the money ran out, she did not just leave." He let out a dry, bitter chuckle. "She took the car, the BMW. She drove it to Vegas and sold it for parts. I am still on the hook for the lease." I felt a flicker of something in my chest. It was not pity. It was not joy. It was just a dull acknowledgement of cause and effect. "That sounds like a problem, Leo," I said. "Not my problem." He narrowed his eyes. "You are cold, Victoria. You used to be warm. You used to be kind. I made you hard." I stood up, smoothing the front of my blazer. This was the moment for the truth, not the angry truth I had screamed in the driveway, but the quiet, painful truth I had discovered in therapy over the last half year. "You did not make me hard, Leo," I said softly. "You just forced me to stop being soft. And you are right about one thing. I was not just a victim." He looked confused. "I let you do it." I continued, my inner monologue finally finding its voice in the real world. For 5 years, I saw the red flags. I saw the selfishness. I saw the credit card bills, and I ignored them. I painted over them because I was afraid of being alone. I wanted to be the savior. I wanted to be the good wife who fixed everything. I leaned forward, placing my hands on the table. "I enabled you, Leo. I watered the weeds of your narcissism because it made me feel necessary. That is my sin, and I am paying for it with 5 wasted years. But you are paying for yours with the rest of your life." I picked up my purse. "Goodbye, Leo." I walked out of the office. I did not look back. I heard the click of his cane on the floor as he stood up, a rhythmic tapping that faded as the heavy glass doors closed behind me. I walked out onto the street. The air was crisp. I drove to the house one last time. The for sale sign on the lawn had a red sold sticker slapped across it. I had sold it to a young couple with a golden retriever. They looked at the house with stars in their eyes. Seeing a future, I only saw a museum of mistakes. I walked through the empty rooms. The walls were bare. The floors echoed. I went to the dining room, where the table used to be, where my father had shoved him, where the illusion had shattered. I felt a phantom pain in my chest, a ghost of the love I used to have. It is a strange thing to mourn a monster, You do not mourn the person. You mourn the potential. You mourn the version of them that existed only in your head. I walked out to the backyard. The fence was freshly painted. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Lily. Hey, Dad says the transfer went through. You really did not have to do that. Vic, I typed back. I did. It is interest. For the stress, go be a great artist. Lily, I had used the proceeds from the house sale to top up her college fund. It was not an obligation, but it was a penance, a way to cleanse the money of the stain Leo had put on it. I got back into my car. It was a new car, a small sedan that I had bought with my own money, in my own name. I looked at the house in the rearview mirror. It looked small now, just wood and brick. I put the car in drive. I was 33 years old. I was divorced. I was living in a small apartment downtown that smelled of fresh paint and possibility. I was not the perfect wife anymore. I was not the fixer. I was just Victoria. And as I merged onto the highway, heading toward the mountains, watching the city shrink behind me, I realized that, for the first time in my life, I did not know where I was going, and that was the most beautiful feeling in the world. The road stretched out ahead, wide and open, and I drove into the pale blue light, leaving the storm and the man with the limp far behind in the rearview mirror.